second about possible scheduling. Should we approach?
Yeah.
Trying to think, of course, on these photographs, Judge, if you want to talk about them now. detectives in this case make any attempt to do a sequence of shots?
Beyond the scope, Your Honor, objection.
All right. Mr. Brayden also asked you a lot. Brayden also asked you a lot. Brayden also asked you a lot of questions about did the criminalistics determine the trajectory of shots?
Beyond the scope, Your Honor.
Did the criminalistics detectives in this case make any attempt to do a sequence of shots?
Beyond the scope, Your Honor, objection.
All right. Mr. Brayden also asked you a lot of questions about testimony you've given in an early matter in this case. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
In that testimony, what did you say about whether or not it was possible that a bullet could have touched the outer layer of clothing of Mr. Boyd?
I testified that the third shot could have gone through, may have gone through some of the clothing of Mr. Boyd.
When you went back to figure out whether or not that was true, what did you find?
That is true. It was.
What did you find?
That is true. And looking back at the photographs of the sleeve with the three bullet wipes, it obviously did. That third one did strike an article of clothing, and now I can specifically say it was the right sleeve of Mr. Boyd that it struck. So it was not a complete miss.
May I have a moment, Your Honor? Was this reconstruction handled the same way you did it with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation?
Objection, beyond the scope.
How he did this investigation is on cross. Did you handle it in the same way that you've handled other reconstructions in the past for the Colorado Bureau of Investigations?
Yes, ma'am.
How sure are you, based on physics, based on the physical evidence that you reviewed, that it's not possible for Mr. Sandy's shots, based on the review of the video and the evidence, how sure are you that his shot is not the one that struck Mr. Boyd in the back?
Yes, I'm certain that Officer Sandy did not create the wound to Mr. Boyd's back.
How certain are you that Mr. Perez's shots are not the ones that created the wound to Mr. Boyd's arms?
I'm definitely sure that those two were not created by Officer Perez.
Thank you. What do you have and what did you review in this case to confirm your opinions about the trajectory?
Objection, beyond the scope.
No, I mean they crossed extensively on the trajectory, and I'm wondering what you have to support your opinion that you reviewed in this case. Did you have a video? Did you review the video to confirm your findings?
Yes, ma'am. The video definitely shows different aspects of the shooting, but also the timing of the shooting, which officer fires, the position of Boyd when Officer Sandy fires, the position of Mr. Boyd when Officer Perez fired. There's even a vapor trail from the bullet from Officer Perez's muzzle to the back of Mr. Boyd. He fired that shot, and Officer Sandy fired the shots that hit Mr. Boyd's arms.
All right, thank you. May the witness be excused, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
State calls Dr. Sam Andrews, and he again is calling in.
affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Sam William Andrews.
Begin whenever you're ready. Good afternoon, Dr. Andrews.
Good afternoon.
Can you tell the jury what you do for a living?
I'm a forensic pathologist.
And what is a forensic pathologist?
A forensic pathologist is a subspecialist pathologist who has special training in examining deceased individuals to determine cause and manner of death.
But are you the pathologist who supervised the autopsy that was performed on James Boyd?
Yes, I am.
How long do you have to study to become a forensic pathologist?
I have a 4-year Bachelor of Science degree. I then completed a 4-year medical degree. I then completed a 5-year anatomical pathology residency, and then a 1-year fellowship training in forensic pathology.
And so you have to go to medical school too.
Yes.
So why would a doctor go to all that schooling for medical school and become a forensic pathologist?
Forensic pathology is a very unique subspecialty. It's very different than any other specialty in medicine. We do examine deceased individuals, but we use our medical knowledge, our pathology training to determine why somebody died. And that can be very rewarding, not only to give the families answers to questions they may have, but we play a role in the criminal and civil justice system, as well as public health.
Who were you working for here in New Mexico when you did the autopsy on Mr. Boyd?
I was working for the Office of the Medical Investigator.
And what is the Office of the Medical Investigator?
It's an office that, under a state statute, investigates individuals dying suddenly and unexpectedly.
Does the Office of the Medical Investigator and the people, the forensic pathologists who work for it, do they have a side?
No.
Are they on the side of the prosecution or the defense?
No, we are independent individuals.
Okay, and when you are approaching a case, do you approach it from one side or the other?
No.
Where are you working now?
I'm at the Travis County Medical Examiner's Office in Austin, Texas.
Are you still working as a forensic pathologist?
Yes.
And why did you leave New Mexico?
Just a better and different opportunity in Austin for me.
Okay. Have you ever testified as an expert on cause of death and manner of death before?
Yes.
How many times?
Approximately 60.
How many times have you done autopsies related to homicides or crimes?
Several hundred.
All right. Can you explain to the, well, let me offer him first judge as an expert in forensic pathology.
No objection, Your Honor. No objection.
He's offered this. Thanks, Judge.
Or declare this.
Okay, Dr. Andrews, can you explain to the jury what the purpose of an autopsy is?
Essentially, to break it down, an autopsy is an examination of a deceased individual to gather information as to what or why the person may have died.
Okay, and do you use a term called cause of death and manner of death, two different things?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what cause of death is?
Cause of death is the disease or the injury or the combination of both that led to a derangement in an individual leading to death.
Okay, what does derangement mean?
Physiological derangement, so abnormality in the way the body's functioning.
And what is the second determination you make, the manner of death?
The manner of death is essentially an opinion, and it's an opinion based on the known circumstances surrounding the death. In New Mexico, we use 5 manners. There are natural deaths, accidental, homicide, suicide, and if we just don't know, then we'll manner them undetermined.
All right, and why is it important to figure out which one of those things this death is?
It's essentially a statistic for statistical purposes, so that the state can track how many people are dying of a given manner.
Let's start with cause of death. Can you explain to the jury how a person dies from blood loss?
As we all know, blood is essential to life. Blood not only carries nutrients, but it carries oxygen to the various organs and tissues throughout the body. If there is significant blood loss, then those organs or tissues are deprived of oxygen, and the cells that make up those organs and tissues start to die. If the blood isn't replaced, or if therapy isn't given in a timely manner, significant blood loss can ultimately lead to death.
Can you die of blood loss even when you're in the hospital?
Yes.
Even though they have the ability to put blood back into you?
Injection bleeding, yeah.
Can you die in a hospital even if they have the ability to put blood into you in the hospital?
Same objection, yeah.
How is it possible that you can die in a hospital when they've got plasma there?
They can introduce various blood replacements in the hospital, but unfortunately, if it's not done in a timely manner, for example, if the person doesn't get to hospital immediately, then even though they're able to replace some of that blood loss, the body is still starting to shut down, the organs and tissues are starting to die still, and they continue to do so.
What is the mechanism of blood loss that kills you? Like, how does it mechanically work? How does that happen?
Well, what happens is that, again, after a significant amount of blood loss, the organs and tissues get deprived of oxygen. When that happens to the heart and brains, it can start to shut down the body, so the cells start to die, and the body can't recover.
How much blood do you have to lose before your life is at risk?
It's variable. Depends on the individual, depends on their underlying health conditions, depends how rapidly the blood is lost, so I can't be specific.
Okay, the more blood you lose, the more at risk of death you are?
Yes.
If you want to save somebody's life and they're bleeding, is it important to stop the bleeding?
Injection bleeding, yeah.
Why is it important when somebody has suffered a wound where they're bleeding? Why is it important to stop the bleeding?
Because if they continue to bleed, then they're going to continue to lose the blood, and if it isn't replaced, then die.
Okay. Can you explain the difference between internal bleeding, where you're bleeding inside of your body, and external bleeding, like from a gunshot wound?
Essentially, internal bleeding refers to bleeding, as you said, within the body. At least when I think of external bleeding, it's blood loss that we're just seeing come out of the body, if you will.
All right, and how do both of those work as far as causing a risk to life?
Both can be significant risk to life depending on what was injured, how quickly the blood loss is occurring. If it's occurring internally, then it may, for example, in the chest cavities, it may compress the lungs and impair breathing. So there are different mechanisms that it can occur.
Okay, as far as a person rendering aid to another person, which one is easier to be able to stop the blood loss from?
Logically, it would be the external bleeding, but that's a generalization.
Okay. Let's talk about manner of death, and how do you go about deciding what the manner of death is?
As part of our investigation into a sudden death, we have what we call medical or death investigators that represent us at scenes, or if it's out of the county in New Mexico, for example, we'll take a phone call and gather information for us. Initially, the information is sort of demographic type information, but they'll also get a synopsis or a description of what the circumstances surrounding the death are. From that circumstances, then we can hopefully render a manner. Sometimes additional information is necessary further down the line, but that initial gathering of information allows us to have an idea of what the manner might be.
Do you have special training in recognizing wounds that are caused by firearms?
Yes.
And what kind of training have you had in that?
As part of our subspecialty fellowship training, we examine and learn about gunshot wounds and how to determine entrances versus exits as part of our training.
Do they also train you on the different kinds of wounds that different calibers of weapons make?
Not specifically. A gunshot wound has very typical features. The calibers do make a slight difference, but you can't determine caliber based on examining the wound alone.
Okay. You testified here that you were trained in how to determine an entry wound from an exit wound. Were you able to determine which were entry wounds and which were exit wounds in Mr. Boyd's case?
Yes.
Were you able to determine a cause of death for Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Your Honor, to the extent that it may imply a legal conclusion as opposed to a medical conclusion.
I think it's the second one, Judge. The second one,
Sorry.
Well, let me.
cause of death first, does not involve a legal opinion.
That's fine, but with regard to
Manner.
manner,
I haven't gotten to it yet.
when you do just specify the medical,
All right, Judge. Okay, so,
and you, if.
I was just going to ask for limited instruction of some sort, just something.
okay, so first, and I haven't even gotten there yet, so let me ask, were you able to determine a cause of death for Mr. Boyd?
Yes, I was.
And were you able to determine a method or manner of death for Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start by describing James Boyd. Can you tell me how old Mr. Boyd was?
He was 38 years old.
And did he look his stated age or not?
At the time of autopsy, we do comment on this, and it's a subjective finding, but based on experience, looked older than his stated age.
Okay, and have you seen that same thing with people who are homeless or live out in the elements?
Search and relevance.
Existing.
Is it unusual? To what do you attribute the fact that he looked older than his stated age?
Search and relevance.
Existing.
What was his height?
He was 6'1",
And what was his weight?
225 pounds.
And how do you determine that? How do you weigh a person when they come in as a body?
We have scales at the office that we're able to weigh the individuals on.
Okay, and what was his hair color?
It was brown or black, dark brown black.
And what was his eye color?
Blue.
Did he have any facial hair?
He had a black mustache and beard.
Okay. In addition to receiving the body, what other records do you collect in order to come to a cause of death and manner of death?
Depending on the case, we have the ability to request any medical records that may be of relevance to the determination.
And were you able to get the medical records for Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
And were those, where did you get them from?
The University of New Mexico Hospital.
And where did his body come from?
The University of New Mexico Hospital.
Did you have them at the time that you did your report, that you did your autopsy report?
Yes.
And had you reviewed all of his medical records from the University of New Mexico Hospital?
Yes.
Why did you want to see the medical records from the hospital where he had been before they brought the body to you?
It just gives us an indication of, particularly because he went to the hospital, what types of therapies they may have done prior to us receiving the body, and any injuries that they may have documented as well.
All right. And when you were at the last time you testified at a hearing, were you able to access the medical records to review before giving your opinion at that hearing?
No, I wasn't.
Can you explain to the jury why?
Because I was not employed at the Office of the Medical Investigator anymore. The file that I was able to obtain from the office just contained essentially the autopsy report and anything pertaining to it. They don't have the ability to release the medical records to me, so I did not have them.
Okay, and have you been able to now review the medical records from UNM Hospital again before you testified to this jury today?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury how you received the body, how the body actually came to the Office of the Medical Investigator?
At the hospital after he died, we have, or the office has contracted transporters. They will go to the body, or after the investigator has gone to the hospital to observe the body, take any photographs as necessary, they will seal the body in a body bag with a seal and a tag number on it. The transporter then removes the body and brings it to the office. When it's time for the examination, the body will be brought into the morgue, still within the sealed body bag, and the seal will be broken, and then we can examine the body.
Okay. Were you able to determine from the medical records how long, what time he arrived at the hospital?
It was just after 8 o'clock on March 16th, 2014.
How long was he at the hospital before he died?
Search and relevance.
Oh, it is relevant, Judge. Okay.
The time of death was 2:55 a.m., March 17th, 2014.
And so how long did they work to try to save Mr. Boyd's life?
That's approximately 7 hours.
Were you able to, when you got the body, determine whether they had done interventions to try to save his life?
Yes.
Okay. All right. When you get a body and are doing the autopsy, do you take photographs?
Yes.
Why do you do that?
Photographic documentation is a good way of showing what we observed at the autopsy, particularly if there's questions about what we observed or if it's being reviewed in some manner.
How many photographs did you take during the autopsy of Mr. Boyd?
93.
How many have we selected to show the jury out of the 93 photographs?
Objection, relevance.
Existing.
Well, we aren't going to present all 93 of those photographs to the jury today, is that right?
Objection, is he presenting the case? How would he know unless the prosecutor told him?
All right. Some of those photographs the jury might find disturbing.
Objection, calls for now getting into jurors' mind, Your Honor.
Are we going to show all those photographs to the jury today?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Right. Let me hand you, did you take a photograph when you're there for identification purposes?
Yes.
And why do you do that?
Again, it's standard photograph we take, particularly for purposes for using it as a visual identification.
Let me hand you what's marked as 47A. And if you can identify that, can you tell me what that is, please?
This is a photograph of Mr. Boyd's head and upper chest with some medical intervention on him.
Why did you take that photograph?
Again, this is part of a series of photographs that we call overall photographs, what we take of the body as we initially get it at the time of autopsy.
And this would have been taken at what point in time of the autopsy?
This would have been just after we opened the body bag and moved into the autopsy table.
Why is it important to photograph what the body comes with?
Again, it's part of that photographic documentation where if it ever was reviewed, it will show what we saw at the time of autopsy.
And does this photo fairly and accurately depict what you saw at the time of autopsy?
The portion of the upper chest and face.
All right. And at the time, did you take just the chest, the head, and the shoulders, or did you take a picture that was more than that?
We took photographs of the whole body, front and back.
All right. Your Honor, I'd move 47A into evidence.
We understand your ruling, Your Honor.
And
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say 47A, Macy,
Yes, ma'am.
is admitted over objection.
And Your Honor, rather than put this on the Elmo to broadcast out to the world, is it all right if I have Dr. Andrews step down so that just the jury sees these photographs?
I don't know that I have the witness step down if you want to publish to the jury.
Well, I need him to explain things from it.
Oh, on this one?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Let me see if there's any objection to that.
I feel it's kind of going to be kind of awkward for me to be up there right next to him the whole time. I don't know how that's going to work.
If you want to stand where you were, so if counsel for each of the defendants want to stand at the corner of the bench there, so that you can see what's being explained, that's fine.
Okay.
And is the juror is waving at me.
I can't see because you have this.
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm going to pull this over here. I can't see or hear you. I'm going to move this over to use this as we go through the examination, if that's all right.
Okay, sorry.
Is that better? Dr. Andrews, would you like to come down, please?
And I would advise the jurors that some of these photographs are graphic, so you should prepare yourself.
If you could, Dr. Andrews, can you explain, and maybe come to the resolution that all the jurors can see, what's depicted in this photograph and what things we see that are attached to Mr. Boyd?
Sure. So again, this is a photograph of Mr. Boyd from the upper chest and head region. What we're seeing there is a lot of medical intervention that was put on at the hospital. He's got they call an endotracheal tube, which is a tube in the mouth that goes into the breathing tube.
Your Honor, we object to the approach.
Yes.
Thank you.
wounds, does that ever interfere with your ability to find wounds underneath where the medical intervention is?
We will remove the medical intervention after we've documented it. Sometimes, in the course of saving someone's life, the physicians at the hospital will disrupt the wound on the body.
All right. And is the very act of medical intervention, where you're trying to start someone's heart or do other things with a defibrillator, can that itself interfere with your ability to find what was an original wound in the same area where the medical intervention happened?
There are some,
I don't know.
sometimes if they've disrupted the wound in the course of trying to save the life, yes, but not.
Okay, and in what area was the medical intervention on Mr. Boyd depicted in this particular picture?
And this particular picture is on the upper chest and face.
Thank you for staying right there. Did you create a diagram to document the entry and the exit wounds?
Yes.
When you first got this body, can you tell me if there was something unusual about Mr. Boyd's body as far as something that was missing?
His right arm.
And where was his right arm?
The right arm was surgically amputated at the hospital. At the time of call to our office, it went to the human and pathology department, and we later requested it for examination.
Why did you request Mr. Boyd's arm be sent to the office of the medical investigator?
We need to examine it just to make sure that there are no additional injuries or the presence of additional injuries on the arm.
Okay, and did you find some defects on the arm that you were able to identify?
Yes.
And what defect did you find there?
There was a small little laceration or tearing of the skin on the upper portion of the amputated arm.
Were you able to determine what that was?
Not specifically, but we surmised.
Objection to any speculation.
The witness can't speculate, but he can testify if he knows.
What do you think it was?
I think is speculation.
I think based on his testimony, but
I'm going to ask for a reason about foundation.
based on your experience and training, were you able to determine what this was more probably than not?
This could have been a fragment of bone as the bullet fractured it, or could have been a fragment of the bullet as it exited the arm.
All right, and did you designate that on the severed arm?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, I would, so here's the problem. You can maybe step over here because we're not allowed to show these to the jury until we get them into evidence. So let me just ask you first. Do you recognize 47D?
That's for
Jack, you can see right through the picture.
Do you recognize 47D?
It's a photograph of the amputated right arm.
And is that a fair and accurate depiction of how Mr. Boyd's arm looked at the time that you received it at the Office of Medical Investigators?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move 47D into evidence.
Same objection as previously noted, Your Honor. And he's guessing, unfortunately, the doc's guessing which one it is on this one.
Oh, he's not judging.
Nor has sufficient foundation been laid based on what we discussed previously with entrance and exit.
Do you have further foundational questions before?
Why is it important to document a part of the body that might have a potential fragment of a bullet in it?
It's just part of examining a deceased individual.
All right. And does it help the jury understand where the bullets might have gone?
What helps the jury, Your Honor.
Okay. Is this the kind of thing that you document all the time in autopsies?
Yes.
And did you actually put a marker and a number on that particular area of Mr. Boyd's body?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move 47D into evidence.
403, Your Honor.
Concur.
I'm going to sustain at this time.
All right. Let me offer a different picture then. Did you take a picture of the area above the severed arm that also depicted a bullet wound as well?
Yes.
Let me get this. Hold on a second. Let me show you another 47. Let's make it 47D2. And can you identify that for me, please?
Again, this is a photograph of the upper portion of the right arm that's still attached to the body.
And what were you able to document in that upper portion of the right arm that was still attached? the upper portion of the arm above where the amputation happened?
It's a documentation of a entrance gunshot wound.
And is that, again, the same kind of thing that you document with photographs whenever you are doing an autopsy that you need to then at some point present to a jury?
Yes.
Okay, Your Honor, I move 47D, 2.
Or object, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Objection based on 403.
Concur.
Okay. All right. Let's put up this diagram. Did you create a diagram, Dr. Andrews, to put the bullet wounds on so you could keep track of them?
Yes.
And was this on the same chart that you used for all of your diagrams?
Yes.
Do you recognize page 46 as the diagram that you prepared, a blow-up of the diagram that you prepared and then testified to at the hearing last time?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move 46 into evidence.
I object and would like to ask the witness 2 questions on Verdire on this one.
Okay.
Thank you. Can we turn, we'll keep the witness?
Sure.
So, have you seen, do you have a, I don't know if you have a copy of the actual one. The first one is actually done. Do you have a copy of the actual one you actually did?
At the time of the autopsy?
Yes.
No.
The diagram you don't? Okay, can you, just a moment, Your Honor, to get that? Does this look like the one you actually did originally?
That's the one I prepared for the preliminary hearing last year.
Okay. This one's different than that one, isn't it?
Slightly, yes.
For example, the word, where, directly where and how it was amputated, or where it was amputated, the lines on that, they're different, aren't they?
On this
Yeah.
versus that, yes.
Did you create this one, or was this the prosecutor's office that created this one?
I did not create this one, I created that.
You created this one, right? Okay, but on the top half, it's different, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, I would object as not being reliable, and I understand if perhaps you want me to approach this argument, but
Judge, this was changed based on the court's order.
but not that part.
Okay. Sorry, Sam. Just keep the chair. Hold on a second. Judge, do I have to do it outside the presence of the jury? Can I put this diagram up there and then have him draw the line?
If it's not been amended yet, I'll have you do it outside the court.
All right. So, Dr. Andrews, they would like you to draw the line where the amputation was, first in pencil. And if you need to refresh your recollection with your diagram from your report, would that be helpful?
Please.
Okay. 47.
have a copy.
Do you?
Yes.
All right, then let's get yours. Let's do it. Let's make sure we're doing it correctly. All right. Can you draw? All right, Judge. With that addition, can we move States 46 into evidence?
And counsel see any addition?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection with the addition?
I would say only that it should be on the other side as well, because currently it's only on the front side.
There's two, front and back.
We can do that as well, Judge.
Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
All right,
Okay.
46 is admitted. May I have my pencil, and can you now mark it in pen over the pencil line so it can't be changed?
That's exactly what we're going to do, Judge. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do, Dr. Andrews, is take this red pen and can you draw in where the application line is on Mr. Boyd? What I'd like you to do is take this pink marker and color in the arm below where the amputation was, please. Thank you, Dr. Andrews. Go to medical school to color. All right, there you go. When you got Mr. Boyd's body, did you receive it without his right arm?
Yes.
Cut off approximately where this amputation
Objection
was?
leading, Your Honor.
Is this diagram accurately depict how Mr. Boyd's body was when you received it?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to go through and talk about the various wounds that you found on Mr. Boyd's upper body. And did you, when you're doing autopsy, do you try to figure out which bullets got fired first, which bullets got fired second? Is that something you all do or no?
We can.
All right. And so how do you go about labeling particular bullet wounds?
It's arbitrary.
All right. So can I just pick a bullet wound to start with then? All right. Can we start with the injuries to Mr. Boyd's left arm, that is this arm here, and what you found as far as bullet wounds to Mr. Boyd's left arm, please?
On the diagram, the circles are the gunshot effects. The circle labeled D we determined to be the entrance gunshot of the upper left arm in the midline of the arm. The gunshot traveled through the subcutaneous tissue and the muscles of the upper right arm, and then exited at the circle of the gunshot labeled E, which is on the side of the upper arm.
Okay, let me show you what you mark. That's Stacy Exhibit 47B and 47C, and can you identify those photographs, please?
Those are photographs taken at the autopsy of gunshot wound E.
Right? And were you able to determine which was the entrance wound and which was the exit wound?
Yes, as I said, the entrance would be gunshot wound D, this one here, and exit gunshot wound E.
Okay, can you do me a favor and put color in green for entrance? Can you see that? Okay. Let me give you a different color, because it's not showing up very well. Let me give you on maybe orange. See, that shows orange for entrance wound. And red for an exit wound here. Your Honor, did I move 47B in?
You did not.
All right, I will move 47B and C into evidence.
Nothing more than what we've already said. Did I understand the course of law?
Sure. Okay,
Agreed.
so 47B and 47C are admitted.
Okay. If you could, using these pictures, show the jury what you found as far as entrance and exit wounds on Mr. Boyd's left arm for D and E. Yes, please.
So this is a photograph of the upper part of Mr. towards left arm. See a little bit of his chest, left side of the chest here. Gunshot wound D is the entrance that we labeled there.
Okay.
Sorry, which exhibit number is that?
B47B.
Okay. And can you take 47C and show the jury what is depicted there, please?
All right, this is again a photograph of the side of Mr. Boyd's upper left arm, showing gunshot wound E, which is an exit on the side of the upper left arm.
Okay. Can you take an arrow, I can take this red pen and with an arrow show which way the wound went?
We went from that way.
And so in this picture, C, on me, where would that be?
C would be here. We
Hold on a
determined trajectory based on the individual line on the autopsy table with the palms to the roof, essentially, your arm up to the palms to the roof.
Okay.
So the entrance really here in the midline.
Can you make an orange mark where it was on me? Sure.
So it's approximately right here.
And then the exit wound.
And the exit wound
with red.
is going to be on the side of the upper left arm, just slightly below the entrance.
Okay. All right. So that's that one. Did that have any other entrance or exit wounds that you saw? Just this one here.
No, just entered and exit.
Okay. Were you able to determine if this bullet made any marks as it went across Mr. Boyd's upper chest?
No,
And why is that?
we didn't see anything.
Okay. Is that the same area where the medical intervention was?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go to can you also explain, is this something that you did, or what is this sewing thing here that's in that photograph?
This is what they call thoracotomy. It was done in the hospital where they made an incision across the chest and limit the chest access to heart.
Okay, that's not something that you did?
No.
Or that you fixed? Okay. We're going to come back to this bruise here in a minute. But let me ask you about the next set of wounds. In Mr. Boyd's right arm, and let me find the photograph that's already been admitted. Oh, here you go. Okay. Did you examine a wound to Mr. Boyd's right arm as well?
Yes.
Okay. Let me hand you what's been marked as 47D2. So it's already been admitted, and then 47J, and can you say what J depicts there?
Do you want G before D?
Whichever one you think is the best order to explain to the jury.
Um,
They haven't been admitted yet, though, so you can't say anything yet.
We can see through. You can just-
Let me just move them really quickly, Judge. Do these both depict, this 47J, first of all, 47D2's already been admitted. 47J, do those depict wounds to Mr. Boyd, entrance and exit wounds to Mr. Boyd from the shooting?
yes.
Your Honor, do 47J into evidence.
Anything further?
Can we see it?
No objection, Your Honor.
Oh, good.
47 days and then
Using these, can you explain to the jury, and taking our, I think this is entrance, orange is entrance and red is exit. Can you show where those are in your diagram, and which is an entrance wound, which is an exit wound?
47D2 is a photograph of the amputated upper right arm. It's showing an entrance gunshot wound labeled B on the side of the upper right arm here.
Okay, I'm gonna have you show that on there and then show it on me. Okay, where is it on me?
So if you put your hand out, palm up.
Okay,
Right over here.
all right. And then where did that bullet exit?
That bullet went through the skin and soft tissue and muscle of the upper right arm, went through the bone of the upper right arm called the humerus, and then exited at C.
Okay, and what is this bone called in here?
The humerus,
And what function does that bone serve in your upper right arm?
its structural importance in the arm.
Is it the biggest bone in your right arm?
Yes.
All right. And what happened to that bone when the bullet hit it?
The bullet went through it and the bone shattered. There was multiple fragments of the bone.
All right, so where did it go next from there?
It went,
Well, first let's show on the diagram, then on me. Okay, thanks, I'll take that. On the exit.
so the exit here is on the inner surface of the upper right arm, slightly above the entrance defect.
Okay, all right. And then where did it go next, that bullet?
That's where it went.
Okay, it stopped right here.
Yes, so it exited the body and then didn't go anywhere else.
All right. Okay, and do we put the exit, on the there, yes, do we put the red for exit?
Let's see.
Okay, all right, great. What are all these wounds here on the left? All of these holes here on the left that are G and F?
F is an exit, and G is a re-entrance that originated from A in the back.
Okay, so we'll talk about that next, all right? Thanks. Let me show you what's been marked as states F and states G. Did you take a photograph of F and G? They moved to the back.
Yes, these are photographs taken at the time of autopsy.
All right. And what is the difference between these two photographs?
47F is a photograph of the back taken at the time of the autopsy. 47G is a photograph taken at the hospital by one of our investigators.
All right, Your Honor, I move 47 F and G into evidence.
I see what the,
Actually, you know what, Your Honor, if this shows part of his buttocks, I'm going to withdraw G. And just move F into evidence.
Your Honor, based on the same objections as previous, on 47, I can still object. I speak for Mr. Sandy.
We'll concur, Your Honor.
Have over objection
Let me give you your colors.
So figure 7F is a photograph of the back of Mr. Boyd. You still have some of the medical convention on him. But here, on the mid, the actually lower portion of the back, slightly to the left, is an entrance gunshot wound that we live with A in the photograph here.
Orange it out there. Were you able to track the path of that particular bullet?
Yes, this bullet went through the 12th left rib on the back. It went through a muscle that runs along the vertebral column called the psoas muscle. Then went through the left adrenal gland, the left portion of the colon, of the transverse colon. It went through the spleen. It went through the muscle that separates the chest and abdominal cavities called the diaphragm. It then went through the lower lobe of the left lung, and then the upper lobe of the left lung, two lobes of the lung. It then exited between two ribs and called fifth intercostal space, and then exited the body at gunshot wound F, which was the left armpit or axilla.
Okay, so can you show, I guess we can't draw on the rest, but if we can maybe, okay, post it me on the gunshot. Okay, and then if we can have that yellow dowel, please. Mark. Can you show the jury sort of how this went, maybe using a side,
So the entrance is
which is the best way to, yeah, okay.
lower back, slightly to the left. It's going upward in this direction here, in a front to back direction as well, towards the front.
All right, and so it came out where, did you say?
It came out in the front portion of the left armpit.
Okay, so that is an exit.
Exit.
All right. permission. Okay. And then where did it go next, that bullet?
And then it re-entered on the upper left arm, upper right arm, I'm sorry. Sorry. Just to raise your arm a little bit.
Okay. And where did that bullet exit?
It didn't.
Where did it end up?
So we recovered the bullet from the left deltoid muscle, just below the skin.
Okay, let me pull out another picture to show the jury that I think has already been admitted. There you go. This is 47B. Can you show where you recovered the bullet from?
So this is a photograph of the upper left arm. There's a large purple bruise on the shoulder. The bullet was found in the muscle just below that bruise.
Okay, and so on me it would be right about this area? All right. And what do you do when you find a bullet?
We will recover the bullet. We will rinse it off, wash it off, put it in a sealed envelope, and it will get turned over to the law enforcement agency that will investigate it.
All right, and so on this particular diagram, this contusion, well, let me just ask you, where was it that you removed the bullet from?
So this is a contusion of the bruise that I showed in the photograph, and the bullet was in the muscle just below.
And can you color that bruise so that we recognize it as a bruise? And can you do an arrow to show where the F and G bullets sort of went, which direction they were going in when they came through? All right. Thanks, Dr. Andrews. Okay, I think that's it done. Thank you very much. What do you do with the bullets that you recover?
Perhaps the prosecutor will take a sticky.
Yeah, that would be good, wouldn't it? Does it say kick me? Let's see, all right. Okay. Oh, there was one that's just been recropped that I think we didn't talk about. There's one more, Judge, let me see what exhibit this is supposed to be. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, I think I forgot one, Dr. Andrews. It's 47E, counsel. I'm sorry, Dr. Andrews, I just need to get you down, but we're not going to move this out again. Let me show you what's marked as 47E. I think we forgot one bullet, entrance or exit wound. I think it's C. Can you identify that?
That's photographed of the upper right arm.
All right. And what, is that an entrance or an exit wound?
It's an exit wound.
Okay. Your Honor, move 47E into evidence.
Same objections previously noted, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Over objection 47E will be admitted.
Can you just come over here rather than with this one? Can you again and show where this one is?
So the photograph C is a photograph of the upper right arm showing exit defect.
Where is label C? And is that right above where the amputation was?
Yes.
Okay. And with the court's permission, because of the sensitive nature of these photographs, Judge, I would propose putting them inside a manila envelope and admitting them all as Exhibit 47 so the jury can look at them or not when they come into evidence, if that's all right with the court.
Yeah, and, I'd like to see the envelope. I'll hand it to the reporter.
Yes, ma'am. Just-
It has all the.
I'm putting them all in right now. Okay. All right, thank you, Judge. What do you do with the bullet that you find in somebody's body?
We will, as I said, clean it off as best we can. We then take a photograph of it. We put it in a sealed evidence envelope, which then will get released to the law enforcement agency that's investigating the case.
Okay, let me hand you a Marcus States Exhibit 47K. Do you take a picture of the bullet before you give it to law enforcement?
Yes, we do.
And can you identify 47K?
It's a photograph of the bullet that was recovered from the left deltoid muscle of Mr. Boyd.
All right, you're going to move 47K into evidence.
I don't object.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, 47K is the next. And Judge, can we turn on the Elmo now? Because I can show this one, I think. Okay, and what can you tell me about that particular bullet, 47K, Doctor?
Other than that it was the bullet recovered, nothing specific.
Okay, but you can identify that as the bullet that was recovered from Mr. Boyd?
Yes.
Okay. What other things did they bring you with the body, other than, well, let me just ask that broad question. What comes with the body when they bring it to your office?
Depending on the circumstances of the situation, sometimes we can get personal effects that come with the body.
And in this particular case, did personal effects come with Mr. Boyd's body?
Objection, no, that's right.
May we approach? Sure. Dr. Andrews, let me wait till everybody gets back. I want to ask you about the items that came with Mr. Boyd's body in the fanny pack as personal items. Did you review them and catalog those items?
I didn't specifically catalog them. I saw them, but didn't
All right.
specifically outline them.
And when does somebody in your office, as part of your records, go through all of the items in all the personal belongings of a person that comes in?
It's actually lack of personal knowledge that are outside the scope of his expertise. What is tested.
If you can answer, Doctor.
During the course of the autopsy, the personal effects will get inventoried by the autopsy technician that's assisting the pathologist during the autopsy.
Okay. Do you also take a photograph of all a person's personal belongings?
Yes.
Okay. If you find a weapon, are you required to turn it in?
Yes.
Did you find any weapons in the fanny pack personal belongings of Mr. Boyd?
No.
Okay. Do you have a record of the release of items, any items that you released to APD?
Yes, there's a list of all the items we released.
All right, and who were the items that were taken into evidence released to?
Detective Render.
Okay. Is there anything about a physical examination like you did of Mr. Boyd's body that can tell you if somebody is suffering from mental illness or not?
No, there's not.
All right. Were you able to determine how long Mr. Boyd had been suffering from mental illness?
No.
Objection, lack of foundation.
Okay. Did you do a toxicology screen as part of your standard autopsy report?
Objection, we've already raised this before, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. I'm sorry, Judge, I didn't think you had ruled on that.
I'm rolling on it. I heard argument, I'm rolling on it. And I don't think much.
All right, then we will move it just as for the record, okay? To make a record. Were you able, after doing your autopsy and examining all the evidence, to determine a cause of death?
Yes.
And what was the cause of death?
Gunshot wounds.
And why do you say wounds, plural?
Because all of the wounds in some way contributed to the death of Mr. Boyd.
How do you know that?
Because all the wounds would have contributed to blood loss. Some of the wounds would have more so than others, but you can't specifically delineate one versus another.
Okay, which were the two wounds that resulted in the most significant blood loss?
It would be the gunshot wound of the left back and the gunshot wound of the upper right arm.
And why would the gunshot wound to the upper right arm have contributed to great blood loss?
As I mentioned, the bone was shattered, and the large blood vessels in the upper right arm were lacerated and torn, and they carry a significant amount of blood under pressure from the heart.
Okay, and why would the shot into the back to the shoulder have resulted in blood loss?
The gunshot wound to the back, as I mentioned, injured the spleen, injured the colon, and the lungs, and they can all bleed, obviously. In addition, it went through the diaphragm, and by going through the diaphragm and then the lungs, it introduces air into the chest cavity, which can impair breathing as well.
Okay, and how much blood did Mr. Boyd lose while he was in the hospital?
According to the medical records, it was several liters.
And how much blood does a person have in their body?
Depends on the person, but Mr. Boyd, I would estimate 5 to 5.5 liters.
And is that amount of blood loss, can that cause death?
Objection, Your Honor, past the scope of his expertise.
Oh, no.
Let me have you lay
You
foundation.
you're qualified as a forensic pathologist to be able to say how much blood loss might result in death, right?
I am a physician, yes.
Okay. Okay. Can you tell the jury whether that amount of blood loss while at the hospital caused Mr. Boyd's death?
Yes, it would. I'm going to qualify that, though. During the course of his treatment or trying to save his life, they did introduce a lot of additional blood, a lot of additional fluids to help maintain a blood pressure, so that may have contributed to the volume.
All right. If there is a delay in getting somebody to a hospital where they can get blood, can that contribute to cause their death as well?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor. Lack of foundation as well. And it prefers evidence that is not in evidence. Facts are not in evidence.
There will be facts and evidence, Judge. Okay.
The delay can, yes, impact whether someone would die from blood loss, because it would allow continued blood loss without therapy.
All right. And were you able to determine the manner of death or method of death, I think is the preferred
Said the
phrase?
text previously that this might imply legal conclusion. I'd like a limited instruction if you allow me to answer.
All right.
Well, let me have you come forward on that.
Okay.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Andrews, did you determine a manner or method of death?
I certified the manner of death as homicide.
Okay.
And just so the jury understands, the witness is testifying to a medical definition of homicide. You will receive an instruction from the court on the legal definition of homicide, and they are different.
After you're done with the autopsy, what happens with the body?
The body will get, we will put the organs back in the body. We will sew the body back up. We will then place the body in our facility until it is released to a funeral home.
Okay, and who was the body released to?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was the body released to someone?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you do a summary of your reported findings?
Yes.
Okay. Let me hand you what's marked as State's Exhibit 45A. And can you identify that, please?
This is a copy of my report of findings with a portion blanked out.
Okay. Your Honor, I move 45A into evidence.
Your Honor, my understanding it's a two-page document now?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I object based on cumulative. It mentions specific things that you've already sustained objections against. It's 401, it's not relevant, and it's hearsay. And if you look at the, well, I don't want to really, because I didn't highlight anything in particular, but, Your Honor, second paragraph from the bottom.
Yes, Judge, and I just noticed that. So I'm offering it with that second paragraph from the bottom deleted. The one line. Can I approach, Judge, and show you what I would delete?
I know what you're referring to.
Okay, all right.
And then I also would argue, Your Honor, and then continue to argue that it's cumulative. The Doc's already testified here, and 401 and hearsay are.
Object on cumulative and hearsay grounds, Your Honor.
I'll sustain with regard to cumulative.
One second, Your Honor. Here, no, I'll pass the witness. Thank you, Dr. Andrews.
Eric, could we clear the screen?
Oh, sure. Just gonna take that off here. That's wrong.
Are you gonna need any
Yeah.
of the equipment?
I'm not gonna need the ammo, but I guess I might need it in case you could bring it to prosecution side. Thank you. Good afternoon, Dr. Andrews.
Good afternoon.
So, as part of being a competent pathologist, you've been trained in, and you have to be familiar with the principles of human physiology, right?
Yes.
In other words, even though you work with the deceased, you still have to understand the complex ways in which a living person functions and how their various systems interact together, right?
Yes.
Because without knowing how the body behaves in life and how it reacts to injuries, you wouldn't be able to assess which injuries were potential causes of death, right?
Correct.
Now, you'd agree with me that when the body sustains an injury, it undergoes or can undergo certain physiological reactions, right?
Yes.
Some of these reactions are autonomous or reflexive, in other words, not made by conscious choice, right?
Correct.
So, for instance, when somebody accidentally touches a hot pan, they might pull their hand back even before they consciously register pain or even make a decision to pull it back, right?
Yes.
Because if they had to wait for that whole loop to go from hand to brain to register and back before they reacted, they might be suffering even more damage in the meantime, right?
Yes.
So would you agree with me that one of the common reflexive movements a body can make upon sustaining an injury is to turn away from the source of pain or injury?
Yes.
So I'd like to briefly revisit the gunshot wound to Mr. Boyd's left arm. I believe you testified that the bullet wound to Mr. Boyd's left arm entered the front of the arm and then exited through the rear.
Yes.
And in doing so, it perforated his skin, the subcutaneous tissue, and the skeletal muscle before it exited.
Yes.
So with respect to this gunshot wound to his left arm, as it passed through the skin, the subcutaneous tissues, and skeletal muscle, you don't dispute that this is the type of injury that could cause a body to instinctively turn away from the source of pain and injury, do you?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. With respect to this type of gunshot wound and sustaining this type of wound, you don't dispute that this is the type of injury that could cause a body reflexively and instinctively to turn away from the source of pain and injury.
Objection, speculation beyond the scope of record.
Your Honor, may I address that? I'm sorry?
I'm going to allow it. You
It-
may answer the question.
It could potentially.
And such a reaction wouldn't be unusual in this case of gunshot.
I wouldn't, can't say either way.
We talked some about potential injury to a chest caused by a gunshot. Now, you never noted or found any evidence that Mr. Boyd sustained a bullet wound to his chest, did you?
Can you define what you mean? Like an entrance to the chest?
Sure. Basically what I mean is that in your report and in the chart that you made up, you made no notation of any sort of injury to the chest caused by a bullet.
Externally or internally?
Externally.
No, I did not.
Okay. And certainly you would have done so had you noted such an external injury.
Yes.
And I'd also like to talk briefly about the wound to Mr. Boyd's right arm. And
Hear that, I'm sorry.
Mr. Boyd's right arm. The bullet that caused this wound entered the back of Mr. Boyd's upper right arm and exited through the front,
It was more the side.
the side. But that wasn't nearly as clean of a pass-through as the wound to Mr. Boyd's left arm, was it?
Correct.
Instead, I believe he testified that after it passed through the skin and the subcutaneous tissue, in the skeletal muscle, it hit the upper right arm bone and shattered it before finally passing through the front of the arm, or the side of the arm.
Yes,
And there was a significant destruction of the humerus bone.
correct.
And I believe that in your autopsy report, you classified the wound in Mr. Boyd's arm as hemorrhagic,
Yes.
and that means it produces a large flow of blood, correct?
It's more referring to the wound tract was bloody.
Was bloody, okay. And that blood flow could make that a life-threatening injury.
Yes.
In fact, you've testified you can't say which gunshot wound specifically caused Mr. Boyd's death, that it was a combination.
Correct.
Now, we talked a couple minutes ago about physiological reactions and responses that the body can undergo as a result of sustaining injuries, right?
Yes.
And would you agree that the body's physiological reaction to sustaining a devastating injury, such as this shot that essentially exploded the arm, might be different in nature from a physiological reaction to sustaining a lesser injury?
Potentially. Yes.
Now, having studied physiology and the body's various, how the body's various systems interact, I take it you're familiar with what's referred to as the retricular activating system, or RAS?
Yes.
And that's essentially an area in the brain stem that accepts information from the sensory tracts before that information is actually sent to the rest of the brain, right?
Yes.
So it's a little bit more primitive area of the brain,
Yes.
allowing for quicker response time.
Yes.
So I take it then that you're familiar with the concept that the retricular activating system, or RAS, can actually become overloaded by impulses caused by a catastrophic injury or intense pain, correct?
I would think so.
And this can actually cause the RAS to reflexively send out a signal that weakens leg muscles, causing a person to collapse, can't it?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay. Are you aware of how in certain types of situations, sustaining catastrophic injuries, the brain can essentially shut movement down and go into a safe mode, essentially by collapsing and remaining stationary?
Yes.
And one of the reasons that the body, for self-preservation, instinctively goes into a safe mode is essentially to protect against further blood loss, right?
Yes.
Because the body's less likely to lose blood, or as much blood, when it's in a prone position and not exerting itself than when you continue to stand and exert yourself, right?
Correct.
So this injury to the right arm is one that you said would have resulted in a significant amount of blood loss due to the vascularity of the arm, right?
Yes.
So much so that it would have been a life-threatening injury due to the blood loss.
Yes.
So that going down into a safe mode would be a way to lessen the potential blood loss and potentially lengthen life, wouldn't you agree?
I'm not sure if it's going to save blood because the vessels are still wide open and disrupted and injured.
But nonetheless, the body may instinctively go into that sort of safe mode when confronted with that type of devastating injury. You agree?
I think it would try, yes.
And in this reaction, this reaction to go into a safe mode wouldn't be unusual given the circumstances and catastrophic nature of the injury to the right arm, would it?
No.
In fact, it's the reaction you would basically physiologically expect to see in this situation, isn't it?
Yes.
And that has nothing to do with the force of the object hitting the body, but rather the body's reaction to pain and catastrophic injury.
Yes.
And finally, speaking of reflexive actions, isn't it true that if someone's falling to the ground, that person will generally open their hands to break their fall?
Typically, yes.
So that if they have objects in their hands, the body's normal reaction would be drop the objects and leave their hands free to break the fall.
I don't know if it's intending to drop the objects, but perhaps in the course of breaking the fall, yes.
So if somebody didn't release objects in their hands or move to break their fall, it could be an indication that they'd already entered a safe mode and were no longer fully in control of their muscle function, couldn't it?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor, and not to a reasonable degree of scientific or medical certainty.
Can I ask you the lay foundation before you ask the question?
You testified earlier about how the body, when confronted with a catastrophic injury, can enter what's essentially a safe mode and go prone and not exert itself anymore. Part of that comes with a loss of muscle control, Would you agree?
Voluntary muscle, perhaps, yes.
And so, therefore, I'm asking if someone has entered this safe mode and they would not be able, if they've lost voluntary muscle control, to that would be an indication if they didn't drop objects that they could have entered that safe mode.
Objection to the form of the question is not being couched in terms of to a reasonable degree of medical probability.
I'm going to allow the question, overrule the objection.
I can't say. I don't know.
Okay. But you would expect someone deliberately going to the ground would do what they could to break their fall, including releasing the objects that were in their hands.
Objection is speculation, Your Honor.
Yes, potentially.
Moment to confer, Your Honor. And you would agree that by classifying the manner of death as homicide, that is in no way making a judgment on the fault of anyone who caused it or making any sort of legal conclusion about it?
No.
No, you don't agree, or yes, you agree, no, it's not.
It's not a legal determination.
Thank you. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
Dr. Andrews, how are you this afternoon?
Good, thank you.
Good. Welcome back to Albuquerque.
Thank you.
And you spell your last name Andrews?
Yes.
Dr. Andrews, you'd agree with me that you don't know what order the bullets were fired or in what order they hit the body, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So you don't know the order of the bullets, and you don't know which rifle any of these bullets came from, do you?
No, I do not.
What do you understand the terminology, a reasonable degree of medical certainty to mean?
There isn't a definition that I'm aware of. What I use is that as a physician, when I examine a body, just like a clinician in the hospital, we develop a differential diagnosis. To me, what is a reasonable degree of medical certainty would be what is the top of my differential diagnosis.
The top of your differential diagnosis.
Yes.
It's beyond me, so can you explain that a little bit more?
When we examine somebody, either in the hospital, the clinician, or even when I examine a deceased individual, I come up with probable diagnoses, what I think are most likely, in this case, that have caused an individual's death. That's my differential diagnosis. Sometimes it's only one thing, like this case of the gunshot wounds, or sometimes there are multiple potential differential diagnoses. And so for me, what would be within a reasonable degree of medical certainty will be what I think is the most likely on my differential diagnosis.
Okay. And you've had plenty of opportunity, haven't you, to look at the body when you did the autopsy, right, and get all the information you needed, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with this statement? You cannot say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that a particular gunshot wound was the fatal gunshot wound, can you?
Are you referring to this case?
Yes.
So you want me to say one of those gunshot wounds out of the three?
Just here's my question. I'll ask it again. Okay. You cannot say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that a particular gunshot wound was the fatal gunshot wound, can you, in this case?
No, because I believe they all contributed in some way.
they potentially contributed to all, is what you've told me in the past, that same question, right?
Objection, improper impeachment, Your Honor.
I believe in the preliminary I might have used potentially, yes.
Okay. So, in the past, though, you said that those three could have been potentially the fatal gunshot. But you in the past have not said that one, with a degree of medical certainty, was the actual fatal gunshot, can you?
I think I told you that I couldn't delineate them to say one over the other was the fatal gunshot.
Okay. So would you agree with me then? I'm going to come back to it. I just want to get a clear answer from you. I think it's a yes or no. And if it's not, then we'll work with that. But you cannot say to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that a particular gunshot wound was the fatal gunshot wound, can you?
No, because I think they all contributed.
No, you say they all did. Do you remember that we did an interview back some time ago, back in 2015?
At some point, yes.
Yes. Let me ask you this question. Do you believe that the gunshot wound to his back was the one that caused the fatality in this case?
In and of itself?
Yes.
No.
Okay. So I asked you that, and let me get to it specifically. So do you remember the question that I asked you? I asked you this question. Oh, okay. Page 25, line 3, counsel. So do you believe that the gunshot wound to his back was the one that caused the fatality in this case? By the way, that's the same question I just asked you, right?
Yes.
And your answer today was no, right?
Yes.
Do you know what your answer was back in 2015 on July 22nd?
I'm guessing it was a no.
It was yes. You said yes, and the gunshot wound to the upper arm likely would cause severe fracture. You could bleed significantly from those type of injuries, but the internal injuries due to the gunshot to the back would have been more, in my mind, rapidly fatal.
Sure.
So do you want to switch your answer today? I'm going to give you the chance now. I'm going to ask it again, Doc. Do you believe that the gunshot wound to his back was the one that caused the fatality in this case? Is that a yes now?
No.
It's still a no.
Still a no.
Why did you say yes back then?
I don't recall why I said yes right now.
Well, can I approach the witness here? I'm going to hand you this, and it's the question starts on 3, and your answer ends on 11, 3 to 11. Can you just take a minute to read it again and see if you can understand why you would have given me a different answer last year?
And Judge, I object to counsel testifying, and in fact, if he would read the entire thing, he would see that he gave the same answer.
Well, we're
That's
going
a
to overrule
objection.
that
Thank you.
objection, and
Okay.
that's what redirect is for.
That's right. Do you see that now?
Yes.
Okay. Did you in fact, when I asked you the question, did you in fact say yes?
To that, based on that transcript, yes.
Do you think this transcript isn't correct for any reason?
No, I think it's correct.
Okay. So again, you just don't know why you answered yes back then?
But I did qualify it in the next answer down.
Yes. So I then went, so the gunshot wound to the back is what caused his death in this particular instance. Well, they all contributed in some respect, but that one would have been the most significant, right?
Yes.
Now, I've also asked you, so if you take the combination of the 2 gunshot wounds and just those 2 gunshot wounds to the arms, you could say with a degree of medical certainty is that Boyd probably would not have died based on the circumstances that you know. Correct?
Just at those 2 wounds?
Yes.
I think he may have died.
You do what?
I think he may have died with those 2 wounds.
Do you remember testifying in a courtroom, sir, in this matter, before today?
Yes.
I asked you,
Page and line, please, counsel.
sure, it's transcript 234, line 19. And I'm going to go up a little bit for you. So I'm going to say, I asked the question, so if you take the combination of the 2 gunshot wounds and just these 2 gunshot wounds to the arms, the degree of medical certainty is that he probably would not have died based on the circumstances that you know, correct? And do you know what you answered then under oath?
No, I don't remember.
You said correct. Are you, Doc, are you now changing your answer from when you said it under oath in front of a judge that, are you now saying that what you told me back then is not true?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative and incomplete.
She's testifying right now. She can do redirect.
No, actually, he's testifying, and it's incomplete, Judge. He's,
Can we approach before she does this then?
Okay.
right.
I'm going to back up again so we can be clear about what we're talking about, okay? Do you remember that I asked you in front of a judge when you were under oath, so if you take the combination of the 2 gunshot wounds and just these 2 gunshot wounds to the arms, the degree of medical certainty is that he probably would not have died based on the circumstances that you know, correct? And your answer was correct then.
Okay.
Today you've said something else, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you go back and look again at your autopsy report since the last time you testified?
Yes.
Did that autopsy report change since the last time you testified until today?
No.
Okay. Do you remember that I then asked you the question, that's a far cry from actually causing his death, right? And do you know what your response was to then? No?
Are you going to tell me?
Well, I will, but you don't know.
I don't remember.
Sure.
Okay.
You agreed with me. You agreed with me that being shot in the 2 arms and knowing what you know, that was a far cry from causing, the 2 shots in his arms, a far cry from causing Mr. Boyd's death. And you completely agreed with me, didn't you?
I guess so.
Okay, now you don't.
No.
How many times have you talked to the prosecutor in this case between the time that you testified last time under oath and this time?
Once.
What did you talk about right outside of the courtroom before you came in to testify?
She asked me about a photograph.
She asked you about a photograph?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Doc, you've never said before that the reason of death was blood loss, have you? The cause of death was not blood loss. You've never testified to that before, have you?
Because that's not a cause of death.
That is not the cause of death?
No, the cause of death is gunshot wounds.
Are you under oath saying that the cause of death is not blood loss? Blood loss.
Maybe you can define to me what you think cause of death is.
No. I want your definition. Your definition is he didn't die of blood loss, right?
The cause of death that I mentioned earlier was the physiological derangements. I'm sorry, the disease or injury that leads to a physiological derangement that causes death. In this case, the injury is the gunshot wounds, hence the cause of death. The mechanism, that physiological derangement, is blood loss.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. You don't know how much blood loss, do you?
No, I don't.
So you can't testify that he died of blood loss because you don't know how much he lost, right?
I can't give you a number. There are descriptions in the medical records about blood loss.
Right. But you're not testifying today that the cause of death was blood loss, are you?
Because that's not the cause of death.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Did you watch the opening statement from the prosecutor in this case?
No, I did not.
Did you hear it?
No.
Okay. Let me ask you if this is a correct statement of what you believe to be true and accurate. So what the OMI will say, you're kind of referred to as the OMI, right?
Yes.
So what the OMI will say is that the cause of death was not one bullet or the other, but it was the loss of blood. That's not what you're saying, is it?
No.
He was alive at the hospital apparently for 7 hours of what you testified to, from 8 o'clock to a little bit, to almost 3 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yes.
They have the ability to supply more blood during that time at UNMH, don't they?
Yes, and they were giving him drugs to maintain his blood pressure and keep his blood circulating.
So let's just agree to what you can say as far as a degree of medical certainty, okay? So I'm putting no degree of medical certainty, okay? And then I'm gonna list some things. If I'm wrong in any way, then you stop me, okay? And I'm gonna put which gunshot killed Mr. Boyd. You don't know that. You can't testify to a degree of medical certainty, can you?
Not one specific gunshot.
Not one specific. Okay? You can't say that he died from, technical difficulties here. Okay. So, you can't testify to how much blood he lost. You don't have no degree of medical certainty about how much blood he lost.
We did collect 600 milliliters of blood from his right chest cavity and 200 milliliters of blood from his left chest cavity at the autopsy. I can be specific on that.
No, but I mean, you don't know how much blood loss he lost while he was still alive while they were working on it.
Not specifically.
Amount of blood loss. And the cause of death was not blood loss.
It was the mechanism of death.
But the cause of death was not, right?
Correct.
Why has your answer now changed, sir, from the previous time you testified under oath?
Which answer are you referring to?
Has there been several that have changed?
You've brought up a couple.
Okay. Why is it then when I asked you originally that the gunshot to his back was the one that caused the fatality in this case, your first response, the first word of your answer was yes, and now today it's no? What's
Because
changed?
I've reassessed my opinion.
You've changed your opinion.
Okay.
That's why?
Yes.
Do you do that often when you're testifying in a case in which 2 police officers in Albuquerque are charged with murder?
No.
Has somebody pressured you to change your opinion, sir?
No.
When I asked you before, you said that the 2 gunshots to the arms, there was a degree of medical certainty. It's pretty important for someone who comes in and is recognized as an expert, right?
Yes.
Medical certainty is a pretty important thing for an expert, right?
Yes.
He understands, like someone like yourself, that everybody in this courtroom is going to rely on somebody that's, when he comes in as an expert, as a doctor next to his name, and he says that I could say to a degree of medical certainty. That's a big thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And when I asked you before under oath, you said you could say to a degree of medical certainty that if he had just had the 2 gunshot wounds to the arms, knowing what you know, he wouldn't have died. And you said, correct. And now you've changed that, right?
I also think I qualified it.
Did you? Did you think you qualified it? Okay. You think you qualified that? Okay. Let's go to it and tell me how you qualified. I'm going to give you the opportunity. Let's see here. 234. Okay. You think you qualified that answer when you said it the first time? Is that
I
your
think
memory?
so. I'm not sure.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Thank you. I start the question at line 19. Why don't you read that all the way until I'm done questioning, which is just on the top of the next page, sir.
Can I get a page, Mr. Brigman?
Sure, 234,
Okay.
line 19.
I guess I was
Can I
mistaken.
approach, Your Honor? Now, doctor, you just said, I think I qualified that answer. Did you qualify the answer?
No, I didn't.
So let me ask you again then, sir. In a murder case like this, why are you changing your opinion on 2 separate times when you swore that you would tell the truth?
I did tell the truth, and I guess I was mistaken.
You told the truth the first time,
Yes,
and you told the truth today.
I believe yes.
Okay, so they're both the right answer.
No, because I've changed my opinion.
But back when you said it was the truth.
I believed it, yes.
So, would you agree that what you say and whether or not it's believable is based on when you're saying it?
Object to the form of the question is argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Sir, what can we do to get to change back your opinion to where it was before, when you said that the 2 shots to the arms didn't cause his death? What can we do to get you to say that again?
Object to the form of the question is argumentative, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor? Since you did your autopsy, you haven't, the medicine or the understanding of the way the body works or anything like that, the medicine in general hasn't changed, has it?
No,
And you've gotten back to review it and you haven't changed your autopsy, have you?
no.
But yet, based on the same autopsy, the same doctor comes in on 2 different occasions and says something completely different, doesn't he?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative.
Completely different, don't you?
I changed my opinion.
Characterization of the transcript, Your Honor.
Can you repeat your
I
answer?
couldn't, overruled and I couldn't hear the answer.
Could you repeat your answer?
I said I reconsidered my opinion.
I have no further questions for the doc.
It will be less than five minutes, Judge.
Is the jury okay? Yeah, okay. You may proceed with the redirect.
Thank you, Judge. So, Mr. Bregman read you from that transcript where you testified on August 4th of 2015, that he didn't flip 2 pages over there. Can you read the question that Mr. Bregman asked you at that hearing, and your answer at that hearing, just 2 pages ahead of where he was reading from, Dr. Andrews.
The question was, so you don't know which bullet caused his death then, correct? My answer was, it was a combination of the gunshot wounds.
Is that the same testimony you're giving to this jury today?
Yes,
All right. Have you changed your opinion at all?
not the cause of death.
All right. And how about this, 5 through 21? Can you read what Mr. Bregman asked you at the hearing then and what you said at that time?
The question was, you mentioned,
Objection, Your Honor, to the form of the question, asking him to read from the transcript and then say that you say that.
Your Honor, this is the thing that I think we should have done when he was asking these questions for the rule of completeness, so that he can, when he read his part, this part should have been read at that time, actually. Okay, go ahead.
the question was, you mentioned could have, sir.
Your Honor, we'd agree to put the whole transcript of his last testimony and his interview into evidence.
That's not a proper way to do this, Judge.
You may address the part that puts the statement into context.
That was incomplete. Go ahead. You can answer, Doc.
The question was, you mentioned could have, sir. I would like you to tell the court what did cause the death. Not could have, but what did. My answer was gunshot wounds caused the death of Mr. Boyd.
And let me stop you, because you said wounds, plural.
Wounds.
It's just like you said today.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
The question,
Your Honor, objection.
Go ahead.
the question was, you don't know which gunshot wound specifically caused his death. My answer was, the gunshot wound to the lower left back, labeled A in the photograph, was probably the most severe and most rapidly lethal injury. However, I can't discount the others as contributing to death as well. The question was, okay, so I do understand that when you first were asked this question, doctor, that you determined the cause and manner of death, correct? Yes. The question, can you tell me which one of these bullets caused the respiratory or heart to stop on Mr. Boyd? My answer was, I can't give you just one.
Okay. Is that the same as your testimony in front of this jury today, Dr. Andrews?
Yes.
Okay. The last thing that I can't remember who asked you, but they were asking, I think it was Mr. Bregman, asked you if you could say which bullet came from which gun.
Correct.
And you cannot do that, is that right?
No, I can't.
But you can look at a picture and say whether an angle is consistent or inconsistent with a bullet entry wound. Can you not, sir?
Your Honor,
Yes.
beyond and beyond the scope.
It's not beyond the scope, Judge. They asked specifically about whether he could identify the bullet, which bullet went into his back. They opened up that area by asking him that question.
I never asked specifically what bullet went into his back, Your Honor. That's not true.
Sustained.
All right. I think we've made our point, Doctor. I'll pass. Can we just be excused from the event?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Dr.
Okay,
Andrews.
thanks.
Okay.
We'll take a 10-minute recess. We'll come back at 4. Please stand for the jury.